So that's solar radiation. The next part we're going to look at is wind, and there's two parts to this. These are the parts that you don't get in Revit. So what we just saw with solar radiation, you can do that in Revit, but these two are exclusive to either Ecotect or Vasari. We're going to look at Windrose first, and then we'll look at the wind tunnel. If Ecotect Windrose makes you a little sleepy, then the wind tunnel will wake you up a little bit. So we'll deal with this one first. So I'll click on that, and you'll see right next to your city there, you get this graphic here with the compass points on it. And what this represents, as you would probably assume right off the bat, is what the tendencies are for wind in this area. So prevailing winds, you can see right off the bat here looking at this, that in London, generally speaking, the wind is doing what? It's moving out of the southwest. That's the strong tendency, and you can see that the wind will blow from all directions over the course of the year. When you look at Calgary's, it looks kind of like this. We have strong tendencies for west winds, northwest winds, and southeast winds. All the other directions tend to be fairly minimal. What you can see below this is another sort of graphic representation of the influence of the wind throughout the year. Notice that on the bottom you've got a representation of the 12 months and then the 24 hours of the day on the left. And if you're not seeing this, by the way, just click on this button up top here where it says Toggle Advanced Date Time Range Selection. If you're looking at this, just select the toggle button and you'll see the additional graphics. On each side of this graphic here, you'll see these little yellow grips. So it allows you to just focus on any particular part of the year. So let's say you wanted to know what was going on in London in April. Then you can see that as I drag this to isolate just that month, that the graphic will update. So the Windrose now shows what happens in April. I can be even more specific than that if I like. I can just kind of hone in on the early part of April. And down below here, you'll see a description as to exactly what days you're dealing with. So I can actually just get this right down to a single day and even single hours. So let's say you were trying to comply with Mayor Nenshie's grand designs for the city, and you said to yourself, I'm going to ride my bike more. You wanted to know what the typical sort of wind patterns were for your ride home every day. You could look at this and say, looks like I've got a 50% chance of encountering a tailwind on my ride home, so okay, Mayor Nenshie, I'll do it. So you can be quite specific here. Now let me just kind of explain what's going on with this graphic up top. I think the initial read's pretty straightforward. You can kind of look at this and say, yeah, I get it. It looks like most of the wind for London throughout April, May, and June is coming out of the southwest. If you look here, it's hard to see. It's not really well detailed, but if you were to follow the bottom line of that little slice of pie there and track it down to this bottom south vector, you'll see that along these lines we've got percentages represented. You can just kind of barely see 5%, 8%, 10%, 12%. So if you follow the line of that little slice, you'll see that it means a little under 16%, so maybe like 15.5% of the wind throughout this period of time is coming out of the southwest. And then similarly, if you look at how this slice is divided into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections, that corresponds to this graphic over here on the right. So you have to just kind of extrapolate the values here. If you say to yourself, that entire slice represents about 16%, if you go from that end point to the next point where the two orange values kind of separate, and again, you just kind of drag down and eyeball, say about 12%. So you would subtract that 15%, or sorry, subtract the 12% from the 15%, which kind of gives you about a 3% ballpark for when the winds move at 20 plus meters per second. So the sum total of all these little chunks and these slices will give you 100%. So it just means that throughout April, May, and June, this is what all the little vectors of wind are doing, and it all adds up to a total 100%. So pretty useful information. Like we did with solar, let's kind of assess how we can use this info. What's this going to do for you? Green building sense. What's the wind got to do with anything?